This is the Old Gorilla Jiu Jitsu Podcast. Welcome to the jungle.
Well, welcome to the Old Gorilla Jiu Jitsu Podcast. This is John, and this is episode 20. How you doing, man?
Awesome, man. It's an honor. Thank you for having me, John.
Yeah, man, no problem. So this is my buddy, Saul Padilla, and he's a brand new jiu-jitsu practitioner, I guess you could say. Just started training a few months ago, right?
Yes, sir. Very, very new.
Well, you know, don't be nervous. I mean, I know this is all new to you. You've never done anything like this before.
No. This is really cool and just honored to be here. This is awesome. So in any way I can help out, give some terrible advice, that'll be me for today.
Well, just so you know, I mean, I do this podcast for myself. I was talking to Jennifer about it the other day. She's like, you know, what do people think about your podcast? I was like, I don't really know. I said, most people, I think, you know, they're okay with it. I said, I'm not trying to like blow up and to be Jocko or be Joe Rogan or anything like that. I'm mainly doing this for myself. You know, I want to get to know some of the guys that I train with, some of the people I'm close to, some of the people I want to get to know better. So basically, this is just me having a conversation and recording it.
Right on.
And just learning about you guys. So
Cool.
I love this art. I love this martial art. And I love, you know, rolling and training with you guys. And all the guys that I've met up until this point have been great people. And I feel like one of the things I haven't been good at in my life is being conversational, right? And so this has really taught me over the last year how to be more conversational, ask people about themselves, things like that. And so that's kind of my goal with this. It's not to, you know, make this into a gigantic thing. If it does turn into that, I mean, I'm fine with that. But I mean, if it doesn't, I mean, this is mainly for me.
Absolutely. That's great. That's great.
Yeah, man. But I'm still trying to figure all this out. I mean, started off, you know, about a year ago. It was almost exactly a year ago, to be honest with you, with just a couple of little mics that you hook to your phone. Actually, I think the first podcast I did was just with my phone. I think it was just a phone in the middle of a table, and I was just talking to John Asher and Natalie. Then I got a little bit better microphone, then a little bit better, and so now this is like the third or fourth iteration of all the stuff. And so I just keep adding different things to it. And so now I've got cameras set up, which is, you know, it's just iPhones, but it works out good, and it turns out good, and it looks well. You know?
I love it.
So it looks good.
Yeah, man.
Have you listened to the podcast at all?
I have not. I am sorry. I have
Busted.
I have not. I was going to last night. I was like, I need to tune in and prep a little bit. And I did not listen.
Yeah, no worries,
sorry,
man.
Bear.
No worries.
I'm sorry.
No, but I've, you know, most of the guests have been people that you've met, right? So Donnie, Selena, Landon. I just had Paul on here last week. Jennifer has been on the podcast, my wife. My two kids have been on, Natalie. I have some friends that are out of town that I've talked to that don't do jiu-jitsu, but, you know, I've just talked to them about, you know, leadership and parenting and being a good father and that type of thing. So the four pillars, I call it, for the podcast are faith, family, leadership, and jiu-jitsu. And so that's what I try to focus on during the podcast. So we'll hit at least three of these topics, maybe four, throughout our conversation. And it's not like I'm intentionally, you know, pushing the conversation that way. It's just kind of how it falls usually.
Right, absolutely. And what got you into it, John? Like, what got you into wanting to submit and choke people out? Because you're pretty good at it, man.
Well, I've talked about it a couple times on the podcast, but, you know, I never was a real athletic person, right? Never did any organized sports growing up. Didn't do
I don't believe you.
League ball, didn't play football or anything like that. And, you know, small, you know, was a little guy. And, you know, just kind of a nerd, to be honest with you. And so I never did any of that stuff. I mean, I tried out for the football team my junior year of high school and made the football team. And then later that summer ended up getting my driver's license, or, you know, a couple weeks after I tried out for spring, got my driver's license. And then I was like, you know what? I want to be able to drive. And I want to be able to have gas money. And my parents, my family we weren't wealthy. We didn't have extra money laying around for stuff like that. So I had to go get a job. So I went and got a job, quit the football team, never played football. And that was my extent of athletic ability, was playing, you know, backyard sports, mostly, you know, backyard basketball and baseball and football and stuff like that. But never like for the school or anything like that. So fast forward, you know, I enjoyed doing different things. So hunting is my main sport.
That's awesome.
So,
man.
I mean, big time bow hunter. I bow hunted and fished and all that kind of stuff whenever I was a teenager. And then that was my main sport, was just hunting and fishing, outdoors type stuff. So got married, had kids, didn't really hunt or anything during that time period. It's probably from, I started hunting again in 2009. So there's probably about 7 to 8 years of time where I didn't hunt, didn't do anything. I was just being a husband, right? Trying to learn my wife and get to know her better and just spending time with her. And then had my kids. And then John Asher wanted to do karate when he was a little guy. He was like 4 or 5 years old. Showed interest in karate. Ended up joining TXBBA. It was just right down the road.
Yes.
We went down there, met Donnie, and fell in love with it. So he did it he only did it for maybe a year, maybe 6 months. He just, he wanted to do it, but he was real shy. So we're like, okay, we'll let him take a break. So he took a break. He went back and did karate again about a year later. And it was like on again, off again type of thing. Mm-hmm. And then he got to be probably 10 or 11. And he's like, I want to try jiu-jitsu. I was like, okay, let's try jiu-jitsu. And so I tried it with him so he wouldn't be so timid, right?
Cool.
And he was starting to grow up, and he, I was trying to help him. And I was like, this could be something we do together. I'm not really into this. I don't really care about martial arts,
Yeah.
I watch like karate movies and stuff, but I mean, I wasn't like in the backyard.
Wait. What was your favorite karate movie?
Oh, of course, Van Damme, right? Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Dude, what an awesome guy.
Steven Seagal, those guys, the 90s, the kind of the pinnacle of that weird, karate, mixed martial arts, kickboxing and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, man,
So,
Bloodsport.
Bloodsport, Lionheart, all those types of movies, right? And so I never really got into it. I mean, I watched it, didn't do it in my garage or anything like that. Not like
on
now.
Step Brothers.
But, I just, he started doing it, and he did it for probably 6 or 9 months, maybe, when we started together. And then he's like, okay, I'm switching directions. I want to play basketball. So the school wanted to do basketball. They were doing a junior basketball for elementary kids, right? So he wanted to do basketball. I was like, okay, go do basketball, and then we can revisit the jiu-jitsu thing later. Well, in that 6-month time span of me and him doing jiu-jitsu together, I fell in love with it. Completely just fell in love with it. Fell in love with the people there, fell in love with the instruction, fell in love with the techniques and the actual art itself, and I just kept going. So he played basketball, and then he took the season off, and then he would go every now and then with me. But I never forced him into it, right? It's like, if you want to do it, you can do it. And then during COVID, nobody could do anything, right? And so I was kind of itching. I was like, I want to keep doing jiu-jitsu, but couldn't train. We didn't know how contagious this was or anything like that. And so Donnie had some jiu-jitsu mats in his garage. And I was like, hey, can I borrow one of your jiu-jitsu mats? I'd like to just keep rolling at the house and just kind of hanging out with the kids. He's like, sure. And so we started rolling in the entryway of our house. We could roll a mat out. And so me and the boys started doing jiu-jitsu in the foyer of our house. And my wife was like, what are you doing? Because we'd have to move furniture and stuff out of the way to do it. And then, so it just kind of grew from there. So because I was doing that and using John Asher as my guinea pig to learn all the moves and rep all the moves, he started getting into it more.
Cool.
And then when we got back to class, he started coming, right? And so it's just been, I think it's 2017 is when I started. So almost 8 years now that I've been doing it. So I went from, not interested at all to now I'm like a purple belt. I'm looking down the road to black belt pretty soon. And so I'm fired up.
Dude, yeah. I love it, man. I mean, I'm looking forward to saying that I've been doing it that long, too, because it's rolling with you guys, and I don't mean to jump ahead or anything, but rolling with, you and Paul, and I don't know who that guy was that was there as a guest.
Yeah.
It's so impressive where you guys don't have to use any of, your full strength to submit and put people down, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I can't wait for that day to come. So it's awesome.
Hey, you'll get there, man. I mean, you'll totally get there. I mean, it's just, the thing with jiu-jitsu, it's an art that, especially, I don't know why guys our age, how old are you?
40.
You're 40.
Yes.
So I'll be 46 in a couple weeks, in August. So 6 weeks, 8 weeks down the road. But there's something about it where guys from their mid 30s and 40s get into jiu-jitsu and then just fall in love with it. You hear that? That's
sirens.
The tornado siren.
Let's go test them.
But man, I see it over and over again. You get these guys roll in, and some of it's with their kids. You know, they get interested in it, and some guys just walk on off the street. They want to get healthy. They've, haven't done anything active in a while. They don't like going to the gym, so they're like, I'll try jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu right now is like in a huge growth moment.
It is.
And when I first started, there were some people doing jiu-jitsu, and you heard about it, and you kind of knew about it, but I mean, from just in the 7 years that I've been doing jiu-jitsu, 7-8 years, man, the amount of people that are interested in talking about it has like grown exponentially.
Yes.
I mean, 7 years ago, you talk about it, and they're like, what is that? Is that like kicking and punching and what? But now everybody knows it's like a grappling art, and their kids are interested in it. They're interested in it. So it's like in a huge growth phase right now.
It is. It is. I was never really attracted to it because of life, work. I thought it was maybe too aggressive, thinking that I would end up, dislocating something and then not being able to go to work for a couple days. But I, since you've invited me to come out and just kind of give it a try, it's been amazing, especially with how, dare I say, gentle all of you guys are with me. Because, we all have jobs. We all have a livelihood. And but no, I honestly just kind of ran into as well with working out. Like, I just got tired of working out with injuries, and I was looking at it as, lifting and running is just boring exercise. There wasn't anything new, and so this really kind of spiced things up, I guess, if you will.
Absolutely.
And I love how you put it. It literally is after rolling, as though you've done a sprinter's workout. And I wasn't a great athlete in high school, but we did exercise, we did sports together, and a sprinter's workout, sprinting. Man, I just remember that wearing me out, and so. I've totally enjoyed the atmosphere that you guys, that Landon and all the leaders here at our gym kind of portray, and it's certainly a team atmosphere, and I enjoy it. So it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So were you an athlete? You asked me about it. So were you an athlete growing up?
Well, I pretended to be one. Our school was really small, John. So if you had a pulse and you had to be a part of sports back in the 90s, early 2000s, because the school population from kindergarten through 12th grade was approximately 200 kids.
Okay.
So in high school, and from your 9th to your senior year, the classes varied between 12 to 20.
Okay.
And that was it.
Wow.
So we played 6-man football. That meant that you were going to do probably, every position, both sides of the ball type of thing, basketball, track. And then when I was really young, our coach kind of said, without saying, if you didn't run track, you weren't going to play football for him the year after that. So all the farm kids, all the ranch kids, their parents grew up with that coach, and so it was kind of just this unwritten rule, like, your kid's gonna play.
Yeah.
You're gonna participate. But we didn't have baseball and we didn't have wrestling. So I mean, football, basketball, track, it was enough to keep everybody busy. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, gotcha.
And then if your grades ever this was what the best part of it is, if your grades ever slacked, you knew the coach was going to come find you. so small town, man. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Out in West
So
Texas.
that was out in West Texas, like
Yes.
Odessa in that area?
Not that far. Right past Sweetwater. So.
Oh, yeah. You told me about that.
Yes, sir.
Sweetwater.
Yeah. So Sweetwater, Abilene area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gosh.
That's
So
where
you
I'm
played,
from.
what position did you play in football?
Well, the
It was
slow
six man,
guy.
you play a lot, right?
Yeah, but the slow ones, the slow guys had to block. So if you were fast, you were either the quarterback or the running back, right? Like all the glory went to those guys. If you were slow like me, then you just kind of blocked for a second, and then they would run around you. so that's all I did. I was a lineman. That's what in a center.
Yeah.
So,
I can see where that translates to jiu-jitsu.
You know what, man? The wrestling thing. I don't remember the guy's name. That
John?
Is that his name, John?
John.
He's
The big guy?
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness!
John Laura.
I'll tell you what. Him and I work with a guy named Rom that grew up doing some wrestling.
Yeah.
And it's impressive how quick those guys are.
Yeah.
And they'll wrap around you, and you're just like, well, lights out. That was impressive. So.
Yeah.
It's I certainly wish that would have been something that we got to do growing up, but because I really think that would have translated over to jiu-jitsu, but
yeah.
It's okay. I mean, like I said, you guys show me a lot of grace and mercy while you're choking me out.
Well, I mean, you and I rolled last night.
Yes.
And I couldn't go, very hard because I'm a little bit injured. I'll
Yeah.
get into that in a few minutes. But I was going to tell you that you're rolling. You've been doing jiu-jitsu, what, 4 months now? 3-4 months? Mm-hmm. 3 or 4 months. From the first time I rolled with you when you first came in to now is completely different, right?
I don't know. I still seem to black out really quick when you guys choke me out or put me out. But it certainly has. I was going to mention, I've been thinking about this. The two things that you and Paul and I've heard Landon talk about is, never stop, being quick, moving, and then breathing control. I can't tell you how much that advice, those 2 points have made an impact on me because once you get on your back and you stop moving around like I did early on, it's really over that fast.
Yeah. I mean, I've noticed that you've picked up a few things, right, already.
I'm trying to, man. I don't know if it's working.
It's definitely working. I mean, I can see that you're thinking through things, right? You're thinking through, like you said, don't get on your back and stay still, right? Breathe, control your breathing.
Yes.
Those are 2 biggest things as a white belt, I think, that you can learn that'll help you get to the next belt. Because a lot of times what these guys will do, they'll come in, and you've noticed this the first, month or 2 that you were doing jiu-jitsu, and you probably still do it some now, is that you go all out, you give everything that you have, and then within 30 seconds to a minute, you're toast.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And usually what the higher belts and the people who've been around a little bit longer will do is they'll wait till you just exhaust yourself because it's like wrestling with a feral cat, right? It is. It really is.
Yep.
And if you have never done jiu-jitsu and you're wondering what it's like to roll jiu-jitsu with somebody who doesn't know jiu-jitsu, it's like you have a bobcat by the leg and they're just going completely crazy. It's one of the most bizarre things that you'll do, but at the same time, it's the closest thing as somebody who's been doing jiu-jitsu for 7 or 8 years.
Yes.
It's the closest thing to rolling with somebody or using your jiu-jitsu to get somebody from the street, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you control this person? Because if you don't control a brand new white belt that's rolling like that, they are buck wild. I mean, it is. So, and you weren't that bad, but there's been some that come in and they're just so wild. It's surprising, it's startling how wild they are.
Right.
But you have to approach it in a way. You can't approach it like a purple belt can't approach rolling with a white belt like they would a blue belt, right? Mm-hmm. You have to approach it in a way that's going to keep you safe and keep that person safe, because at that point they're in full panic mode, and a lot of times,
survival mode, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's all I could think of was to try to get you off when I was new is I've got to go 1,000 miles an hour, breathe fast, and hope for the best, and lights out. So that's
and for all you people listening, all 10 of you that are listening to this. But we never have choked out Saul. He's never blacked out. He always taps. He's using a little hyperbole.
I am. I'm sorry.
There's always a tap.
Yes.
Not yet has he lost consciousness.
Not yet.
I've never lost consciousness. Last night when we were going over the gator roll to anaconda,
yes,
and you were wrapping that on me, and you sunk it in. It was one of the times that we drilled it. That was the closest in the 8 years that I've been doing jiu-jitsu I've gotten to blacking out. I mean, because my eyes were open, but the room started shrinking real fast. Now I've seen like the peripheral vision kind of leave a little bit here and there over the years. But whenever you caught that anaconda and you got it tight, because the first few times that you did it, it was tight, but it wasn't like tight, right?
Yes.
And you sunk it in that one time. I think it might have been when you reversed it back to the other side and you were having a little assistance from the ground to close that choke. I mean, it was happening fast. I mean, I could see that the room was closing in narrowly, really fast.
I remember seeing your face, and you were not kidding around, and I'm like, what have I done? I felt so bad.
There's only been, since I've been doing jiu-jitsu, there's only been 2 people that I've seen lose consciousness during, one was during a tournament, and one was during a class. And the one during the class was very brief. They're out 3 seconds, and they came back. And so it's hardly noticeable that they lost consciousness. But the person that in the competition that lost consciousness was because of me. And it was my first tournament, and I'd never done it. I was yellow belt, so 1 belt higher than you. And I was rolling against this guy who was a yellow belt as well. He still is doing jiu-jitsu also. He's a purple belt now. Nice. But I caught him in a triangle. from Spider Guard. So Spider Guard, launched my foot over his bicep, closed it up, and got it tight right off the bat. But he was like, I'm not tapping, because this was like maybe a minute into the match, right? This is a 5-minute match in a tournament. And the way we do tournaments in our school is submission only. And then if nobody gets submitted, then there's overtime, and then you get points, and the first person to get points wins. So he wasn't going to tap, right? So I sunk this triangle in, and it was tight, but it wasn't tight, right? And so he tried to get out of it, and I ended up sitting on his chest with a triangle sunk in. And so I'm sitting there, he's in a triangle, and I'm sitting on his chest, and he ain't going nowhere, right? It was tight
Yes.
at this point. And then all of a sudden, he just went limp. And so here I am, brand new to jiu-jitsu, been doing it for about 6 months, do my first tournament. I'm a nurse, right? I'm like, oh, crap. So I had to go from like winning the match to like resuscitating this guy, which that's just lifting their legs up, helping them get blood back in their head.
Absolutely.
But, it was pretty weird and ironic from a nursing point of view to like, I just like choked this guy out. Now I've got to save him.
Yes. Bro. But he didn't want to give it up, man. And that. Honestly, when I did start coming, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to tap fast enough, whether it was a shoulder, elbow, choke out lock, and I'm like, man, I'm not gonna last. But like I said, just over and over, this place or these men and just everybody is really, really patient. And just like the instruction that we got from that gentleman, he's like, man, go slow. What's the hurry? There's no hurry if you're trying to do this right and you're trying to learn it the right way. So I really appreciate the craft that you guys sort of are trying to instill in the future, or people straight off the street that don't know what they're doing. Like I said, I've always been intimidated by a lot of this. I didn't think I'd have enough time to be able to do something like this, but it's like an hour. Yeah. It's not a big deal, and I wish I had more time. To do more. Yeah, absolutely. Well, so you're a firefighter, right? Yes, sir. And how long have you been a firefighter? I just came up on 18 years.
18 years.
Yes.
Okay. So you were telling me early on that a lot of the guys, or some of the guys in your station, also do jiu-jitsu. Was that part of the reason that you got into it as well?
There's always been, when you have a group of men come together, and I'm not saying this happens at our fire department, but there will always be men that want to wrestle and, get one on top of each other. And there are certainly some of our guys that are skilled either in this or know judo or something like that. And they've always kind of tested it out on me. And I'm just that you remember those dummies from the 90s that wore the suits and the crash test dummies?
The crash test dummies.
Yeah, so they would be like, oh, Padilla's here. Hey, come here. Just stand right there, and I'm going to try this move on you and show everybody else. And I'm like, why did you pick me to be that guy? And so anyway, so that was always me. And I, it would always hit me like, if I ever need to defend myself, my girls, my wife. I mean, we live in a world that, in the fire service, you have your brothers that show up on scene with the police, and we can deal with patients, with people as a group together, which is awesome. But we don't ever want to do anything like that unless it's necessary. But what it's certainly been translated over is, you don't know when you're going to run into a situation where you have to defend yourself, and so, or you may need to help someone else. And just like you, I'm sure you've ran across patients, aggressive patients, that you've either had to restrain chemically or physically. And so I used to work part-time in an ER, and I can think of several instances where as a staff, the emergency room staff had to, before, because securities, you have that at your disposal, but they're not right there when you need them. And so the same can be said in the fire service world, that you don't know when someone's going to go that way, and then you have to call PD. So if you know how to do some of these things to safely mitigate that situation, I mean certainly the better. So I was reading that article that you shared with me from was it
like CBS News?
Yes, is that NYPD that they're just now doing that? I mean, Gracie is, I don't know much about their family, but I just feel like the history of his family teaching the world jiu-jitsu and those types of holds. I mean, I feel like it's behind. All PD officers certainly should know some of those moves or some of those techniques. And you hear about, talking with our police, they mentioned some of that training mandatory, but if they're not doing it every day and they're not moving up in knowledge and class, like I think they're behind the 8 ball too, because they're the ones that encounter it the most.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Yeah, the story he's talking about is it was on CBS News. It came out yesterday. So Henner Gracie's grandfather was Helio Gracie. Helio Gracie is basically the inventor of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay.
Right? So he learned from a Japanese Jiu-Jitsu artist, and then he applied it. So just so you have a little bit background on it, Helio Gracie was a smaller guy. He was small, frail, kind of sickly, wasn't very strong, and so he wanted to develop a martial art where he could defend himself against people. Mm-hmm. And so he taught it to his brother, and then it just blew up from there. So Helio Gracie is like the father of jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
And then the Machados, who we fall underneath, are the cousins to the Gracies. So it's the same family tree.
Cool.
So much of the jiu-jitsu that's in Texas and in the eastern central part of the United States is Machado.
Okay.
And then most of it in California and out that way is Gracie. Right.
Understood.
But they're all together the same. I mean, they have some differences in techniques and all that kind of stuff and things that they teach, but they're all together. They're the same family, essentially.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so back to the NYPD. So back, I think it was around the time of COVID. I don't know if I can say COVID on YouTube or whatever anymore, but we'll see. I guess we'll find out. But there was that guy that got arrested, and then they knelt on him, and then he couldn't breathe. He kept saying, "I can't breathe." And so this is kind of why this is happening now. It's like you see these, and you see it all across the nation, right?
Yes.
These police officers don't, or most of the police officers are not trained in how to properly control or subdue somebody nonviolently. They have, non-lethal, tactics. They've got like taser guns and all that kind of stuff and non-lethal ammunition and things like that. But as far as like hand-to-hand control or hand-to-hand combat type of control, they don't have that. They've never been trained to that. Or if they do, they get like 15, 20 minutes or an hour of it in their training when they're going through like the academy, but they don't get much more after that, except for the guys that go and train on their own.
Right.
And so in New York, it's very they're very high profile, and so especially because of that case, and so they wanted to figure out what they could do to teach their police officers how to safely subdue and control someone who's belligerent, right?
Yes.
And so they have this thing called the safe wrap system, where it's a 2-officer technique, and they wrap this guy up basically like in a side control type Vale Tudo. It looks like Vale Tudo. But somebody's got the upper half, and then somebody's controlling the legs. And
awesome.
They kind of wrap the legs up. But I think it's super important, not only for police officers, but all first responders, like you said. Because, firefighters, paramedics, they need to learn how to safely subdue somebody and control them, because you never know. You got somebody with a head injury, they're just off the rails sometimes.
We certainly had a call a couple weeks ago. It was a seizure patient, and first time, young male, family didn't know what was going on, and he certainly needed the help. And he, thank goodness, wasn't ultra aggressive, but there was a little bit of everyone needing to pay attention and watch his movements. And we finally coerced him to come with us to the hospital and get checked out and be seen by the doctors in the emergency room. But yeah, EMS people, you have 2 on the medic here at MedStar. If you have a diabetic, seizure, head trauma, like you said, it could even be some sort of infection that their mental status is gone, and so they don't mean to. They're not intentionally trying to cause anyone harm, but if they don't meet the criteria to be left alone unattended anymore, it's not safe for them. And so, yeah, we have a responsibility to care for those people and further get them safely to the hospital. So, yeah, like I said, the two methods that we use is either chemical with, obviously, medications, or if physically we can do it, and that's also calling in PD for further assistance. And so, over the years, we've had guys come after us. We have dealt with that, like I said earlier, as a group, sort of in that example. But, I mean, nothing worse than could ever happen. And there's multiple instances. I mean, you can get online and find multiple stories of where someone was held down improperly and they lost their life. And so it is very much a high profile a thing these days, like you're describing. And I don't know exactly what to say from, in the past, early on in my career, if it was sort of maybe not appreciated to know these techniques or to learn these techniques, but it could be more relevant than today for sure. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a huge need for it. It should be mandatory for all first responders, right? So police, fire, paramedic, EMS, nurses, doctors,
Yes.
That are dealing with, especially in the emergency room. Because I worked in the emergency room that had psych capabilities. All right, we had a psych admission unit in our hospital that I worked in a while back, and we would frequently have people coming in, and it could have been they were chronic alcoholics and their blood alcohol level was 600, and so they were just off the rocker because of that,
Yes.
or they were on PCP. And I was living in Kansas City, and there was a span of time for about 6 months where PCP made another entrance into the drug paraphernalia space, and we had PCP makes people real crazy. Have you ever seen a PCP?
I'm sure I have. At the time, as you're in the middle of it, you don't really know what exactly it is, if it's bath salts or PCP or what it is. But yes, it is terrible to see.
Man, the amount of strength someone has on PCP is unheard of. I mean, unless you've seen it, you wouldn't believe it. It's almost like they've been demon possessed or something. I mean, it's a different level. It is mind-boggling how strong these people are. And then they're not making a whole lot of sense verbally, right?
No.
But they can fight off. They could fight off a 500-pound gorilla.
Yes.
I'm convinced of it. I
Yes.
mean, I saw it several times. But the only way that you really had to subdue them, because you had to give them some medications, right?
Yes.
You had to give them some Ativan, and that really wouldn't do a whole lot. So they'd end up on antipsychotic medications and all that kind of stuff.
Well, you'd have to wait. You have to wait for it to kick in, and so Versed is one of the ones that we go to, or maybe even ketamine, but it takes time.
You have ketamine on your truck?
Yes, sir.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so but someone's got to hold it down because they don't want it. Yeah, at the emergency room that I worked at for a little bit, we would send our psych patients over next door, and the joke, I guess, was that if the patients weren't going to be respectful or follow directions, then they got what they called booty juice.
Okay.
And so I always think of that joke that the nurses would share with us, because I mean they had to restrain these people because of how aggressive they were towards the staff and towards other patients.
And so when you say booty juice, let's hold them down and give them a shot in the butt.
Let's go. Keep hitting that. I'm sorry. Yes.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
Had to clear that up.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Thank you. Oh, so inappropriate today.
Oh my gosh. That's
never
hilarious.
coming back.
So another, I sent you a TikTok too. I don't know if you watched that. It was Officer Brandon Tatum. You ever heard of him?
Yes.
Yeah. So he posted it. And it looked like it was happening. There was this very belligerent person. It looked like a Marriott. I was looking at the, I stay in Marriotts a lot whenever I travel, but it looked like a Marriott. So he's kicking this revolving door, just cussing and raising all kind of cane. Comes in. And he's standing at the desk, and he's raising his hands up and shouting and cussing and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And there's a police officer that's, I guess it's an off-duty police officer working security at this hotel, walks up to this guy, and he's standing face to face with him. He's talking, and the guy reaches up to do something, and this cop just takes him down immediately. Nice. Basically, he picks him up by the waist and body slams him.
Wow.
gets on top of him, and it handcuffs him. I mean, it took 30 seconds for this cop to do that. And it's hard to look at this and not think that this cop's had some training, right? Because the way, the efficiency of him being able to get this guy, throw him on the ground, he had a knee in his back, right? Not like on his neck or anything like that.
Right.
But like he was controlling him, got his arm out to the side, cuffed him, and cuffed and stuffed in 30 seconds.
Wow.
Right? And I was like, that's pretty amazing, because not only did he save injuries to everybody around him, because there was like several people standing around in this lobby. I guess some of this might have been like employees of the hotel or whatever, and a couple bystanders. But also the officer didn't get injured, and the person that was, causing disruption didn't get injured. Maybe
not to mention
he's got a bruise.
Yeah, not to mention property and anyone walking by. That's amazing, and that is absolutely what I hope to be like one day.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, that makes me think of this. So whenever I was a brand new white belt, probably for the first year or so, I would lay in bed at night and I would game out what I would do if somebody did something to me or my family. Do you ever do that?
Well, I started to certainly do that with, I've never been a gun guy or a hunting guy. And lately, that's certainly been a focus of my thoughts of, okay, so if I do have a sidearm or something that I can get to within the household, but what if I can't? And so that's where this has kind of been taking place, where I don't know. So John, I hate to admit this. The only thing I can do right now, I feel like in jiu-jitsu do well, is just kind of run away. So defense. I don't know anything about offense yet, and so anyway. But you can't win, like they said, like they used to tell us in football. Anyway, championships are won by defense. So I've got that going for me right now.
Hey, and you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's hilarious, right? It is funny, but I mean, the first 2 years of your jiu-jitsu of life, training jiu-jitsu, you should be focusing on, you're exactly right, focus on defense, right? Okay. Because once you get to blue belt, that's when you're going to start really working on the offense side of it. But as a white belt, you want to survive. Yeah. You want to be able to employ the things that you need to do to survive, like staying off your back, using your legs, right?
Yes,
pulling guard and keeping somebody close and keeping them controlled. I mean, those are all fundamentals that you have to have with jiu-jitsu, and that's what we're teaching you. And in the early stages of jiu-jitsu, that's what you're going to pick up is, how do I defend myself? You listen to Jocko, I'm sure.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and so one of the things he talks about is like, jiu-jitsu is a great and a powerful tool, but it's not a tool that you're going to use to assault somebody, right?
Correct.
Jiu-jitsu is going to be, if somebody encroaches into your personal space and they put a hand on you,
right,
that's where jiu-jitsu kicks in.
Yes.
If they're not touching you, right, and they're just yelling at you, you can walk away, right? If they start swinging at you, you can walk or run away. Right. They try to kick you. You can walk. If they start getting out a knife, you can run or walk away. Right. They get a gun, you can zigzag and run away. Right. And you want to avoid the confrontation. This is what I teach the kids. You might have been there whenever I was teaching the kids.
Yes.
And your number one priority in an altercation or a fight, and this goes for kids and adults, men, women, everybody, get away from that. Don't engage. If you don't have to engage, don't engage. But the minute somebody lays their hands on you, they've now entered your space. They've now begun to assault you. What are you going to do? Yeah. If you're not equipped to get that person on the ground and then control them until somebody can come help you, or subdue them or submit them so you can get away safely, you need to figure out how you're going to do that. Either you need to have a firearm, you need to have some type of protection, pepper spray, like I was saying on the last podcast. Have something to protect. If you don't have those things,
right,
what can you do physically? Do you know jiu-jitsu? Do you know karate? Do you know sambo or any of those things? But I think out of all of the ones that I've read about and looked at and things like that, jiu-jitsu seems to be the most effective in a close quarters situation where you have to hold somebody down, or somebody's trying to hold you down.
What what is hard for me to at times wrap my mind around is men like this ginormous guy, and I've never met him personally, but he just looks huge. Jocko, you're a pretty big dude. Joe Rogan, different guys that have these abilities, and it's all about control. You guys aren't looking to pick a fight. What you guys are teaching, what everyone seems to be teaching, is that it takes more control to sit back, to pay attention to your surroundings, to understand that you have essentially learned a very valuable skill and not to employ it unless it's absolutely necessary. And so, just like carrying a firearm, it's the same thing. All of these particular ways to defend yourself, early on from listening and just kind of paying attention to these gentlemen is that it does not need to be employed unless it's absolutely for your life safety. And so it's really interesting because that part takes so much control, so much discipline, and I admire that. I feel like growing up in the 90s, early 2000s, it was about, if you saw guys employ some of that stuff, they were bullies. They were, there was a lack of self-esteem, and that's not the case at all. What gentlemen like you and different people that have these huge podcasts, whatever, that do martial arts, it's about self-control and that discipline. And so that's what I love about this program is that the young men that are coming through, that's what they're learning and that's what they're picking up. And I think that's what we've desperately needed, because sports is great. But we were taught, hey, aggressive. You have to be physical, and that's not the case here. Yep. The least amount, from what I can tell anyway, you guys aren't using any of your strength to submit me. And so, but that being said, too, you on the streets, if you have these abilities, you're not looking for a fight. You're not welcoming it either. But if it does come your way, you certainly have the responsibility to employ these techniques. And so I don't know, I feel like that's what's really awesome about martial arts. The little bit that I'm picking up is that these techniques are so valuable, but you're not looking to just randomly do this to some poor sap on the street. It's
no. We are not like Johnny from Karate Kid, right? We're not the bully. Yeah. Or I guess it depends on how you look at it. I saw the conspiracy theory that the real bully is Daniel.
I've seen that. That's great.
So it depends on what side of the conspiracy you land on.
Yeah, absolutely, of course.
Because he ended up winning the tournament with an illegal kick to the head. So I mean, maybe Daniel's the bully. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe so.
Oh man,
that's awesome.
So we talked a little bit about why you got into it. I invited you to come check it out, but was there anything else behind that kind of got you geared into it? You said something about wanting to learn how to protect yourself or protect your family, but was there any particular thing that really triggered you to get into that?
No, the kids. So it actually started when you were going to do the classes for the kids at the Classical Conversations, the school that we are a part of with you guys, and I just saw you kind of going through the motions with the kids, and I was like, oh, I mean, he's just inviting me to come check it out, right? It's like coming to visit a Bible study group or a men's event or whatever. I was like, what's the worst that could happen? And man, I just remember getting sweaty and exhausted and having a really good time. I've always been curious about it.
Yeah.
These past couple my 30s, I've been curious about it. But I've never had the drive or the commitment to want to stick with it. Now I don't go every day like I'd like to.
Yeah.
But it has certainly been a lot of fun, and I can't believe I didn't do it sooner. So.
So what do you think? So you've been doing this 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
What has been, I guess, the most eye-opening thing or most interesting thing that you've picked up in jiu-jitsu since you've been doing it?
It certainly has been the great, or the part where, the higher belts, the guys with experience, the guys that have been doing it a little bit longer, and just how smooth the technique sort of develops into. And I would say that with fire is all I know. Fire service, EMS, And there's guys that are great paramedics, great firefighters, and as they work on their craft to, whether it's on the nozzle or cut holes on roofs or start IVs or intubations, right, or just the patient interaction, like there's a craft there that these guys over time develop. And so I kind of look forward to that challenge.
Yeah.
To learn from you guys and to get better. And so, because I don't know anything about plumbing or electrical, so I need to be good at something.
Hey, I'm not good at plumbing or electrical either, but I own an old house, and I've had to learn how to get better at plumbing and electrical. And, just like with everything else, it takes getting out there and putting yourself out there, right?
Yes, sir.
And, same thing with jiu-jitsu. You got to show up, and you've got to go through the motions and see what's out there and see how to get better.
Yes, sir.
And you've been doing that, and so I see that in you for sure.
Trying to, and it's a lot of fun too. Like it is a lot of fun. And I there was a younger guy that he goes to a gym out in Weatherford somewhere, and he's always asked me to. And, of course, the distance. And I'm like, it's too far away. And he would roll with me a little bit and try to show me some stuff. And I'm like, man, that is it's so cool. It is a lot of fun. And it's really interesting. And I've just never taken it serious until now. So, yeah, it's
what does Cherie think? What does Cherie think about you doing jiu-jitsu?
So I do a couple of things to her. Actually, what I do, no, I let her do it to me. And so she got me really good with that wrist control thing. I think she popped my elbow, so she did it really well. She thinks it's great. She thinks it's cool, and I hope to convince. I don't need to convince, but Maya, my youngest, wants to kick things. So I think karate is just around the corner for her. So, and then Mila, she's a little bit more.
She's a little more timid.
Yes, but I think that's what she needs. She needs to actually hit a bag or something.
Yeah.
And I think I'll have her. Convinced.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Maya and Amelia both did the spring jiu-jitsu class that I did for CC, and they both did amazing. And there was a brief moment there after about halfway through where Amelia was like, I don't know if I want to do this, and she was kind of backing off a little bit. And then toward the end, she got back into it, and I would see her doing the techniques and rolling and all this kind of stuff, and she just had the biggest smile on her face, and she would really enjoy it. And so I think, even though she's not doing it currently, I think she's not showing a whole lot of interest in that. Am I right on that?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And then, but Maya, your little one, she's 7. She just turned 7.
Yes.
Right? She blew me away.
She loves it.
She blew me away as a 6-year-old because I'd never taught like a jiu-jitsu class for kids before. And I didn't know how this was going to work and everything.
God love you. You did great.
But I would say, and I think I said this at the end of the class whenever I was kind of giving a little speech at the end of the 10 weeks, Maya, I think she absorbed more than anybody else in that class. She
still chokes me out, John. She still puts me in a little hole there, and I'm like, oh, okay, you did good. Good job.
A rear naked choke.
Yeah.
But I would hear her like whenever because I would do like positional drilling, right? It's like, all right, everybody show me side control. And then, so a lot of kids were struggle. They couldn't remember where side control was or what that looked like or what the position was, where the knees should go and how to control somebody. Maya would jump right in it, and she would then she would correct others around her. Like, hey, your knee's not where it's supposed to be. Your knee's supposed to be here, and this knee's supposed to be blah, blah, blah. And then, it would be, or we'd work a submission, because I taught them 2 or 3 submissions. No, that's not the submission. This is the submission. And she would and she was exactly right. I was like, this is incredible. She took to it like a duck to water.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. She certainly doesn't get that from me. I guess her mom, because I'm still I'm learning and I'm struggling with the names. And that's because I haven't done my homework, but I certainly have enjoyed watching a lot of really cool instructors on YouTube, and, I'll breeze through some of those, and sort of try to, it's really getting your hands on too, John. It's really getting those reps in, and that's what Paul was talking to me a couple of nights ago. He's like, man, we just got to get you in here and just over and over and over again. And Maya, she has this gift of just remembering it really well.
I often wonder.
Jealous.
like, does she have like a photographic memory because of the way that she was able to remember everything? It was incredible.
I haven't tested it out yet, but she tells me how smart she is.
She's 7, going on 21.
Exactly. All these girls, John, pray for me. And a granddaughter.
Oh, and a granddaughter. That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Well, Jennifer, she's been bugging me. I think she's very interested in the concept of jiu-jitsu, but she's very hesitant in it because it's a bunch of guys. You know,
Yes.
90, I would say 95% men, right? If not more. Would Cherie be interested if we did like a women's only class and had a woman teach a jiu-jitsu class?
Oh, I think so.
You think so?
Yeah, I'll ask her.
I'm trying to figure out how to get that together because I think we have enough interest if we put it out there where we could have, you know, I think 8 to 10 ladies that would do a jiu-jitsu class.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I wouldn't teach it. I wouldn't. You know, we have Professor Saul. She's really good with. She's taught like women's self-defense. She teaches jiu-jitsu.
Nice.
She does a lot of like private lessons and things like that. She'll teach some of our classes. You've seen her teach a couple times probably. Then we've got Natalie, John Asher's girlfriend. Yeah, she'll probably be a blue belt in jiu-jitsu coming up here pretty soon. But
Dude, I rolled with her one day, and I'm like, what is going on here? I thought my weight for sure, or strength, you know?
yeah,
No, not at all. Not at all. So I think John Asher said that she's been doing karate for like...
since she was 9. Yeah, so she's 15. So
Get outta
was that
here.
6 years? Yeah, 6 years as
awesome.
karate. She's a 2nd degree black belt, I think,
And she teaches
and she teaches
at this gym too, right?
She teaches. Yeah, she teaches.
Yeah, that's
karate.
incredible.
Yeah, she's incredible. She really is. She's really good at karate. She her leadership abilities. If you ever, if the girls ever check out karate, I'll let you know when she's teaching.
Okay.
She can go or they can go when she's teaching.
That would be great.
But she is like a leader as a 15-year-old, right? She'll be 16 here pretty soon. But as a 15-year-old, her leadership ability is, it surpasses. There's people that I work with that are in their 30s and 40s and 50s that don't have the leadership abilities that she has.
So mature.
Yeah, very mature. But I lend it to her being in martial arts,
Yes.
and having to develop those leadership skills, and that's a big part of what they do at TXBBA with these karate kids, especially when they get into the leadership program, which she's been a part of for years, is to help them hone those skills, because having leadership skills is really important for these kids once they leave the house, right? Or as they go through their high school experience and get into college and things like that. So it's not something that a lot of people are born with, but you can definitely develop it.
No, yeah, then that's where I would say for me, the reason why I was so attracted to sports, even though our coaches were just hard, they were just hard on guys, and they wanted, they had their standards, they had their expectations, they didn't shy around being direct. And for whatever reason, it might have hurt her feelings, but you knew where they stood, and they wanted the absolute best from you. And so what I see just from walking in, everyone has to bow, shake hands. You ask if you want to roll, if a higher belt will roll with you. I love that type of culture, and I want my girls to certainly be surrounded by that. And so, you may not come from a military family, or you might think that that's too hard, but that's not. It's done in such a loving way.
Yeah.
And that's why I can appreciate not only this form of martial arts, but I would imagine that it's in every discipline. Like, that's how these gyms sort of develop. There is a hierarchy. There is a way that you continue to grow. But you're ushering in, you're teaching the young ones as well as they come in. And so. I don't know. I think the discipline and the expectations and those 5 rules. I even took a photo of it because in fire service, EMS, police, it's the same. It's all the same. We all run in the same circles as far as this type of environment that you would like to see young guys sort of take on those leadership qualities, because one day they'll be in charge. One day they'll be leading the scene. And so I had a lieutenant. When I was new, that would say things like that to me, and I always wondered why he would even consider putting such a positive spin to me becoming one of the senior guys. Well, after 18 years, he's at the fire chief position now, and all those older guys are retired. And so drivers, lieutenants, captains, battalion chiefs, I mean, they're not new guys, but they didn't just get hired in as a battalion chief or as a lieutenant, right? So it took years of cultivating and training and finally getting to those positions. And the same can be said in a gym like this. You start out white and as a white belt, and then you work your way up. So
Yep, exactly.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's switch gears just a little bit. One of the things I like to talk about is faith, right? We go to the same church.
Yes.
You're a believer.
Yes, sir.
You've been involved in leadership and done different things at the church in the past, and you may still be now. I may not be aware of it.
No, well, Cherie and I, we host at our home a Bible study, a growth group class after the second service. And so instead of meeting at church, we just have couples and their kids just come over to our house, but the Boyettes, Caleb and Mallory lead our growth group, and so we have the honor of hosting, and we've been a part of growth groups in all types of capacity as far as leadership roles to help out, and we've loved our time at Hewland Street Church, and so this is kind of our way of serving our class, and Cherie, and of course helps with the kiddos, and I meet up with Lee Ray to help with any kind of men's ministry events that we have that are coming up, which, by the way, plug for the Bros and Brisket in September. So if anyone from the 10 people that listen, go. If not, they don't come to our church. Love to have them in September for the Bros and Brisket meal. All dudes. We'll have some brisket and some pork, and so just a good time.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. I've never made it to one of those. I've always had something going on I've been here at the church since 2020. Oof. And so
this is the year.
This is the year. Maybe I'll make it happen this year.
You better.
So I love. You haven't listened to the podcast, so you don't know this, but one of the things I really enjoy is weird Bible things, right? So weird things in the Bible. Is there anything weird in the Bible that you've looked into, or?
It was driving me crazy, not understanding about Noah's son that saw him naked. Okay. And how he cursed him, and I think it was Ham. I'd have to bust it out.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I don't understand any of this. This doesn't make any sense. And then someone broke it down for me. There's, I guess, 2 interpretations. I don't know if is that.
No, come on.
Is that okay?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I don't really. And listen, I'm no theologian here. I'm no pastor.
I'm not either.
Okay.
Man. I just like talking about this stuff because you just never know what perspective or what you're going to get.
Well, it's really sad. It's really scary and weird all at the same time. But one interpretation of it was that he saw his dad lying naked after the flood dissipated, and they grew grapes and all these. Or had the ability to make wine. Yeah. And Noah was just basically hammered and naked. Yeah. And so his son walks in and sees him naked, and he goes running and tells his brothers, like, hey, Dad's naked and hammered. Yeah. And so
Dad's naked. Is that the what version is that? Is that Dad's naked and hammered?
Yeah, that's gonna be mine. That's not exactly verbatim, but that is certainly
the paraphrase version.
Yeah.
The Padilla paraphrase version.
Right. I'm so sorry.
That was hilarious. I love it.
I'm probably gonna get kicked out of church. So his other brothers come in, walking in backwards. Yeah. With a cloak on their shoulders so that they could,
so they can cover him.
Cover him, yeah. And so the thought was, well, this guy, so he gets cursed for that, and I just always thought it was super harsh. And so I was like, well, what's going on here? And like I said, the thought is that he either went running to dishonor his father, or there's an even more sad reason. So basically, the thought is that he also or might have hooked up with his stepmother, and from them, their line are the Canaanites.
Okay.
And the other brother, his line is cursed, and so the other brother's family will end up conquering and overcoming the Canaanites, basically the Hebrews.
Okay.
Because when God, the promised land to the Israelites, as they come in and they start, Joshua starts taking over all the tribes that were originally there in Canaan. And so, yeah, it was deep, man. And I've never understood why, those events sort of unfolded the way they did. But through genealogy and obviously through those events, that's sort of the explanation, and you can find that in Leviticus, and of course the event is documented in Genesis. And so anyway, I don't know why I had to share that one with you, but it's been on my mind.
Oh, dude, it's super interesting because there's things that you really don't think about, right?
Yes.
It's like it's not an essential thing, right? It's not like we
No.
have to understand this to get salvation or anything like that.
Exactly.
But it's just like I like talking about these interesting things in the Bible just to see what else is out there, because I think once you start digging into this fringe stuff, right? I call it the fringe Bible stuff. It kind of broadens your understanding of like the culture of that time and how that may influence, the culture in the times that are to come, in the future and all that type of stuff. And so it also makes you dig into the Bible more, right? Because you're trying to figure out, okay, what exactly does that mean?
Yes.
You start digging into more scripture. You're looking in books that you probably hadn't read in a long time to put all this stuff together and try to figure it out. Maybe you never come to a conclusion about what is going on there. Or maybe you have a little bit better understanding of that. But I think anything that drives you more into the Word is good for you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And like I said, it's not an essential thing. It's like just don't get wrapped around the axles, but let's talk about it.
It certainly, once again at the firehouse, there's an older guy that I work with, and he has some awesome questions.
Yeah.
Just put it that way.
So is he a believer or not?
He is not.
Okay.
He is not. But he is always open to discussing some of this stuff. And I just remember years ago that being a really good question. And I never really understood. I didn't know the answer very well even then, and I didn't understand the culture. And so some of those theological classes that you can take, will take you there in some of those instances. But ultimately, usually where I land with any time that I'm trying to muddle through theology or God, the topic of Jesus, is that he sent his son, and this son took on all of our sin. Absolutely. And loved every single one of us so much that he died for us. Absolutely. And so, in the fire world, we take an oath, right? And we are to do our best to help people in the worst case scenarios that they might find themselves in. And so sacrifice, discipline, honor, loyalty, all these things, all these words, I think mean something to most firefighters in the brotherhood anyway. And we're not trying to place ourselves in a terrible situation where we can't get someone, but we certainly are their last hope. And so, I certainly share that good news with him any chance I get, and it's awesome. I love the guys that I work with. I have a lot of respect for them, and a lot of love over the years. I mean, it's the same fire department. So this will be year 5 that I've been on C shift, and so I've enjoyed it, man. And anytime I get a chance to share something good with them, I try to get it in there. So
yeah, anyway, absolutely. But and I think talking about some of this weird stuff, right? Because one of the things I've been into, I'm not going to get into it too much because I really been into like the Book of Enoch and Genesis 6 and the whole thing, right? Yeah. So, and it's super interesting. But it also is a good way for people who are not into like Bible stuff to kind of get introduced to Bible stuff, right? Start talking about giants and Nephilim and fallen angels and all this kind of stuff. It opens up a door. Or you talk about, this weird thing with Noah and Ham. It opens doors up to be able to talk about stuff, or any other stories, David and Bathsheba, or, any of these things.
Yes.
It just opens the door to, have discussions around the Bible, which will ultimately lead to a gospel presentation,
Right.
And at the end of the day, that's the goal, right? Is to have some discussions and build some rapport with someone to be able to hopefully introduce them to Jesus, all right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and these characters, characters, these these accounts of these individuals in the Old Testament that I hold to be accurate and true, and it's truthful that I believe in. They weren't perfect their entire lives. There was certainly things that things that they fell to, whether it was addictions, depressions, the ladies, wine, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And that certainly resonates with me because I am a sinner and I certainly have my faults as well.
Absolutely.
But these people in the Old Testament that God holds up, there is redemption, there's reconciliation, and He loves them. He didn't leave them, and they remembered that, and they sought after God's own heart. And so it's an incredible story. Multiple stories, and it's written by different people too, but still leading to the same thing, like you're saying. So so the account continues to follow through, and there's no holes, there's no gaps that even though there's people that try to look for it or try to point it out, and you're like, you can't, man. It's God's word.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice try.
Yeah, exactly. Well, man, we've been talking for about an hour. It went by fast.
I'm sorry.
No, man. That's why I shoot for about an hour. If I can get a little under an hour, that's fine. But usually around an hour is pretty good. It's the sweet spot because we get to talk about a lot of different things.
Right on.
So it's been fun, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, man. You had a lot to say.
I know. I'm a talker.
No, it worked out pretty good, though. So, real quick, just a reminder to change up the format. So now I have all these posted on YouTube. So the podcast is on YouTube.
Cool.
And so I started a YouTube channel. So I have some narrated roles. You saw me recording last night some of the roles. I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to post the role that you and I had where I was ended up holding my ribs because I'm so bruised up from the night before. But, so I have that, some narrated roles.
Still didn't win.
Hey, I was just trying to survive.
Whatever.
Man, cause I didn't hit on this, but the night before, so Monday night, was it Monday night? Yeah, Monday night. We got through with instruction and drilling and all that kind of stuff. And then usually, we have 20, 30 minutes afterwards to roll, and people kind of, roll 2 or 3 rounds and then they're out. We did King of the Mat. So have you ever been involved in King of the Mat?
No, but that sounds like fun.
Yeah. So we had the junior mat, which where all the kids were at, and then we had the adult mat, right? And so Professor Bador, Donnie, said, hey, I need a king for the kids and I need a king for the adults. And so I just kind of stood back, and Parker became king for the kids, right? So he wanted to do it, so he jumped in there. And so I didn't want to jump right in the middle of the mat and say, I'll be king, right? And so I sat back and I waited, and everybody was just kind of looking around, and then people were looking at me. And I was like, so...
It's like the junior high dance.
And I was like, all right, I'll do it. I'll be the king. And so the rule is king stays in the middle. Everybody has to roll with the king. If you submit the king, you get to become king. If you don't submit the king, then the king stays the king and then keeps rolling. And so the way this works is if you get on the mat and you're rolling with the king, if you're submitted after a minute, you get off the mat, they reset the timer, and then the king rolls with the next person. So basically it's a roll that is nonstop roll. And I ended up rolling for 30 minutes straight. With I think it was 12 or 13 different people, back to back to back with maybe 30 seconds in between rounds. And by the end of it, I was completely roasted. And so my last round that I rolled for King of the Mat was with Landon, black belt, Landon Bador. And he, we were just going, I was exhausted, right? I was just trying to survive. And so I have this, my ribs have been bothering me ever since on this right side, my floating ribs. And I was thinking about it last night after I got done rolling, and because I had to stop because my ribs were hurting so bad.
Yeah.
And I remember that Landon, he likes to do this spatula grip key lock on me. And he does it on everybody, but he particularly does it in me, where he digs his elbow into my floating ribs to pry my arm up so he can do a kimura. And I remember now, thinking back, that's where I hurt my ribs. But I was getting out of the shower this morning. I have 5 or 6 bruises all over me from freaking King of the Mat rolling episode, and my ribs are killing me right here. It's not like they're broken, but I can mash on them. They're bruised up pretty good. But anyway, so that I'm just beat. I haven't been this beat up in a long time. So, and we had some big dudes on Monday night that were there rolling. You weren't there, but anyway.
Well, there were some big dudes yesterday that you were rolling with again. And
Yeah. Well, two of those guys were there on Monday.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, it was ridiculous. And so I should not have rolled last night, but I can't stop. I just can't. If we have open mat or we have rounds, I can't not do it. And so I ended up leaving a little bit injured last night. So anyway, so I'll do, so on the YouTube channel, we got podcast, we got the narrated rolls, and we'll have some instructionals coming up.
Oh, cool.
And a few things like that. So more to come. So check that out. I also had the podcast on Spotify and Apple. Nice. And then Jennifer works for a branded apparel and promotional products company, fully promoted here in Fort Worth. And she's going to open up a fulfillment center for me. I'm going to have my T-shirts, rash guards, hats, probably some coffee mugs, and different things coming soon. So watch out for that.
Yeah, I want a coffee mug. Down for
man.
that.
Absolutely. Well, that's it, man. If you guys would please like and subscribe, that would be great. If I grow this, it's great. If I don't grow it, it's fine too. I'll keep doing it anyway. But huge milestone today, 20 episodes, about 50% of podcasts never make it past episode 20. So I'm crossing that milestone. So,
dude, it's an honor, man. I got to be here on 20. This is great.
Man. All right, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Old Gorilla out.